Hello and welcome to our podcast.
I'm Emily.
I'm Sub.
And I'm Jasmine.
Today we're going to be talking about educational video games. What's their thesis, Emily?
We want to know what makes educational video games an effective teaching method.
That's right. Today we will be debunking common myths about video games, discussing traditional and non-traditional educational video games, discussing how story games can be used for literary study and thematic analysis, and a brief overview of video game industry as a whole.
We chose this topic because video games are becoming more relevant and prevalent in this modern age. Pretty much every kid has played a video game at some point, and they love to play them.
Video games are often discredited as violent or a waste of time by a lot of older people who may not have been exposed to many video games before.
We believe that using video games in schools can be an extremely effective teaching method. Additionally, we want to encourage people to design more and better educational video games designed for the use in classrooms.
To start with, before we can talk about why video games are a great teaching tool and how to use them, we need to talk about why video games are often overlooked and the common myths and misconceptions surrounding them. According to a research study done in 2024, 85% of teens play video games, 41% of teens play video games every day, and by gender, the study shows that 97% of all teen boys and 73% of all teen girls play video games.
That's a lot of teens playing video games.
That's right, Jasmine. In fact, as of 2024, there are about 3.32 billion people of all ages who are active gamers worldwide. But I digress. I have some very important questions for you both. How many of you were shamed by a parent for playing a video game? How many of you had a parent who said that video games rot your brain? How many of you had a parent tell you that video games are a waste of time? How many of you have been told by a parent that you'll never make friends if you stare at a screen all day? How many of you have had a parent tell you that video games cause violent behavior? Unfortunately, this is not uncommon. Many parents shame their kids for playing video games. For some, video games aren't even seen as an acceptable hobby, let alone something of value or something that kids should feel passionate about. One research survey in 2020 shows that 27% of gamers hide the fact that they play video games from their parents. That may seem like a small percentage, but remember that is a little over 1 in 4 gamers.
Yeah, that's really sad considering there are like 3.32 billion gamers, and 85% of them are teens.
Yeah, it is sad. That is a huge amount of people. Having parents or adults who disapprove or disregard your passion can be extremely isolating, and it can really change the relationship and trust with adults in your life, especially so in your delicate teen years when puberty is already making everything feel crazy.
It certainly doesn't help.
The questions I posed earlier showcase some of the many reasons why 1 in 4 people who play video games keep their hobby a secret. And all of those reasons that some parents shame their kids are completely false and based on archaic stigmas. A lot of people feel like their parents don't understand video games. They just don't get why they're so important to us or why we believe they are valuable. In fact, according to the same 2020 research survey, 47% of all gamers believe that their relationship with their parents would improve if their parents got gaming. The researchers from the Pew Research Center say, quote, "Media research suggests that when parents participate in a media form with their children, parents are able to impart their values and beliefs about the acts and messages within the media form. This holds for watching television programs as well as for playing video games. Parents who play video games with their children can explain and contextualize the violent or negative messages that children might pick up from playing certain games." However, a study from 2008 indicates that only 2% of parents with kids who play video games regularly play video games with them.
That's really unfortunate since you mentioned that 47% of gamers would have better relationship with their parents if their parents got video games.
Playing video games with your kids will certainly be a great first step to understanding what video games are all about while bonding with your kids in the process.
That's right. Parents in the audience, I challenge you. Go play your kid's favorite video game. Play it with them. I know that I would be thrilled if my parents asked me to play a video game with them.
Me too.
Same.
But anyways, let's address the common misconceptions I mentioned earlier that have caused such a divide between some adults and gamers. As we will learn later in this podcast, video games do not rot your brain, and they are not a waste of time. Later in the video, we'll learn all about the different educational benefits of video games and how they can be utilized at home and in schools. Next, regarding the belief that gamers are bad at making friends because they, quote, stare at a screen all day. A 2024 research survey found that 72% of teens play video games for the express purpose of socializing with friends. 89% of teens play video games with other people all the time, and 47% of teens have made a close friend online because of a video game. I myself can attest to this fact. In my own high school years, my friends and I played Minecraft as a way to socialize and have fun together. We would build gorgeous houses and work together to build prosperous little Minecraft communities. My friends and I also love to explore an MMORPG, mass multiplayer online role-playing game, that I used to play a ton in high school, called Guild Wars 2. This game has one of the biggest open-world maps in all of gaming history, and you'll never run out of new places to go. My friends and I would get together after school and explore the vast fantasy world while doing quests and saving the realm from an evil dragon. Even as a university student, I still have friends who invite me to play Genshin Impact, Civilization 6, Smash Bros, and For the King with them on the weekends. Although, I don't have a lot of time to play these days.
I've actually made a lot of friends online through video games. Many of them live in the US, so we talk over Discord while we play together.
Yeah, I have met a lot of people through video games too. I get to meet people from all over the world. We can't meet up in person, but we get to hang out through digital gaming platforms.
It just goes to show that not only are people who play video games capable of socializing, but some gaming in itself is a social activity. Lastly, one of the biggest misconceptions about video games is that they cause violent behavior and that they can cause a lack of empathy. First of all, I'd like to point out the major flaw in this argument. Video games are not a genre. They are a form of media. Saying that all video games cause violent behavior is like saying that all movies are violent horror films. We all know that there are different types of movies. There are violent horror movies like Saw, but there's also classic fun movies like Mary Poppins and dramas like The Titanic. There are movies for kids like the Paw Patrol movie or Disney's Frozen. The point is, there are different types of video games in the same way that there are different kinds of movies. I think the reason why some people get confused is because when they hear the words video game, they immediately think of controversial hardcore shooter games like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. For many who don't play video games, they have an extremely limited perspective of what a video game is, and they tend to hyper-focus on certain aspects of controversial games instead of seeing the media platform as a whole. Even in video games that actually have excessive violence, there are dozens of studies that have disproved the myth that violent video games cause violent behavior and a lack of empathy. The study that I looked at examined the relationship between aggressive behavior in adolescence and repeated use of violent video games. It specifically investigates the effects of regular violent video game use on emotional recognition, a trait related to empathy, and inhibitory control. The research explores the general aggression model that asserts that repeated exposure to violent video games results in violent or aggressive behavior. The results of the study found that violent video games actually had no effect on emotional recognition, meaning that playing violent video games do not make you less empathetic. And adolescents who play violent video games actually have a significantly better inhibitory control than adolescents that don't. Meaning that violent video games don't make you more prone to anger and cause you to have a lack of self-control, but in fact improve those traits. In the end, we need to recognize that there are many common misconceptions about video games, and I think it's important for people to educate themselves before judging or scolding the people who play them. Now that we know that video games aren't dangerous, we can talk about how video games are and can be used in classrooms.
Now, let's talk about traditional educational video games, like Kahoot. So, a traditional educational video game is designed or used to teach children skills or educational topics. These also include sites like Cool Math Games, and also, as mentioned, Duolingo and Kahoot. Many of us likely have experience using some of these sites and programs before.
I have. When I was a kid, I got really good at the alphabet by speed running an alphabet game on my Leapfrog Leapster. I loved to show off to my grandpa how good I was at the alphabet, and that made me obsessed with getting faster. It's crazy how a simple game can reinforce learning so effectively.
That's awesome. And what's great about these games is that they're already used in classrooms. Teachers integrate Duolingo, Kahoot, and Quizlet to help their students learn and study for math, spelling, science, and even coding. While they are not traditionally designed like typical video games, they use gamified elements to make learning more approachable for students.
Exactly. I think kids love these games because they make learning interactive. The visual and auditory presentation allows students with different learning styles to flourish. I got this from an article on Kahoot written by Mariora Pascu. It explained that a test was conducted with 89 high school students using the RAID-VAC model. This model is a theory that one will prefer to learn through one of these sense channels: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. They then assessed the learning preferences of those students by having them learn geography through Kahoot integration. The results showed that Kahoot was very beneficial for students with multiple learning styles, showing that it was successful in catering to a diverse group of students.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised. Kahoot quizzes are usually very appealing, and the sound when it displays you on the podium is very satisfying. Also, Kahoot provides instant feedback and rewards. Plus, some have leaderboards, which adds a competitive element and motivates students. By providing the lessons through these interactive models, it's no wonder students have become so engaged in learning.
What's also great about educational games is that they are often very flexible in adjusting to fit or providing the needs of certain students. I think students with ADHD would really enjoy the many fast-paced games and cool math games for kids, like Run, or puzzles with lots of colors and movement, like Red Ball. Duolingo also offers ELL students fun ways to practice their vocabulary and speaking. Overall, there's a lot of options for different students.
I think beyond the ones we mentioned, there are still plenty of other educational video games that would teach students spelling and math. Teachers can make use of these games as a way for students to study inside and outside of school. They can be used to review past topics or introduce new ones in an engaging way. Do you like Minecraft? I do. I've been playing Minecraft since it came out, basically.
Yeah, Minecraft is great, but what does that have to do with educational video games?
Minecraft is what you would consider a non-educational video game.
But what about Minecraft Education Edition?
Well, I'm talking about regular Minecraft, like just the plain Minecraft, like the one that you would play with your friends after school.
So what about it?
Well, there's so-called non-educational video games that actually have educational benefits.
Really? Like, what kind of games?
Well, group shooter games such as Fortnite can help build collaboration and communication skills.
Oh, how's that?
Well, just think about how much strategic communication you have to go through with your team to get a battle royale.
That's true.
Moreover, there have been recent studies published in 2024 and 2025 that showed the impact of sandbox games, specifically Minecraft and SimCity, and how they can promote problem solving, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity, especially in students with ADHD. I mean, just thinking about my own personal experience, I've learned so much about how to count by 64s and how to create working redstone machines from Minecraft. It really shows that it allows you to create whatever you can imagine.
Actually, I once made a museum about Harriet Tubman in Minecraft for my Social Studies 9 class. I recreated all the important scenes from her life and made it so you could walk through the timeline of her life and read Minecraft books with little descriptions of each of the scenes.
Wow, that's really cool.
I also learned a ton about math by playing a game called Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem is a strategy game based around math and probability. Calculating health and damage, as well as the percentile success rates of attacks, dodges, and critical hits, is vital to the game.
Exactly. Or like playing Just Dance in gym class.
Hey, I had a teacher who loved to make us play Just Dance.
Just Dance is a useful tool to have to allow your students to get their wiggles out, even if just during a 5-minute break between classes. Heck, I remember when I would play Just Dance with my friends during our spare blocks in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was either Just Dance or Among Us. One got our daily dose of cardio and the other one taught us not to trust each other.
You mentioned how playing sandbox games were good for students with ADHD.
Yeah, well, the studies that I read, they specifically did research on students with ADHD and found a 24% improvement in collaboration skills.
Now, if this helps students with ADHD, how sure are we that this would work on other students?
If we go off the Universal Design for Learning principles, the implementation of programs for students with exceptionalities, such as ADHD, would help most other students as well. However, no one teaching method is one size fits all. So there might be some that wouldn't benefit, but it would not be the majority.
Makes sense. So how can we implement these non-educational video games in our classroom?
Well, I would say just letting kids play video games during break time. There's often mixed opinions regarding what kids should be doing on their lunch or recess breaks, but if they're older, then just let them play video games. You can't force them to play if they don't want to, but if you see a group of high school students playing PUBG or Among Us during their lunch breaks, just let them play. As long as the game's appropriate, it could actually be a great conversation starter for your students. It could help you with healthy relationship building between you and them.
So what about younger ages, like elementary or middle schools, for example?
Well, just as Emily mentioned, they had Just Dance during gym class. That could work with any age group. And I actually played Just Dance this past week, the 2025 version. It was a great workout. They also have a new feature where you can filter songs by accessibility needs, which is pretty neat. Another example I personally experienced was in my grade 6 year. My teacher had started a Minecraft club. I think we met like once a week during lunchtime.
That's pretty cool. So, video games teach problem solving, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Is that it?
Those are the core competencies that video games promote. I believe they also promote storytelling. Just think about the story design in a lot of narrative-based games. They can cover deep topics in a variety of different ways, from exploring mysteries to learning about the dynamics of friendships. Video game narratives are often like reading a visual, interactive book that is usually a choose-your-own-adventure with multiple endings. It's pretty neat in my opinion.
Yeah, it's super cool. So would you say that having non-education video games in the classroom would be helpful for a teacher?
Oh, 100% yes. If they're age appropriate and used in appropriate ways, I think that both teachers and students could benefit from the exploration of sandbox games and narrative games.
Speaking of narrative games, some video games have excellent literary themes that can be as good or even better than in novels. Some students struggle with English and literacy comprehension. This generation of students has some of the most varied reading and writing skills seen in a very long time. One of the teachers that I had a chance to learn from showed me the submissions for an assignment she gave her 9th grade English class. Some of the submissions were very good, beautifully written pieces, and some of the submissions were so bad that I would not have accepted them from a grade 5 student. Right now, it's not uncommon for two students of the same age to be at completely different literacy levels. One could be reading Bram Stoker's Dracula for fun, while another could struggle to read Captain Underpants.
So what's causing this disparity in literacy skills?
There could be multiple different causes, but I think one of the main problems is books. The issue isn't that students are getting worse at recognizing and analyzing literary themes or narratives. It's that they just despise having to read books. Everyone learns differently, and some people just dislike reading.
So, what do we do?
Well, Jasmine, we've already taken the first steps. I'm sure you've been in an English class where you've analyzed the themes of a movie, poem, or even a song. Using a mixture of different types of media is a great way to meet the learning needs of all students in the classroom. And I think that some story-based video games are an excellent medium for studying literature.
So what exactly do you mean by story-based video games?
I'm talking about narrative-focused adventure games. These games are typically short and require no skill to play. The focus of these games is on the narrative, story, setting, deep themes, and characters. Think of these games as stories with visual, audio, and interactive elements. Many of these types of games use choice as a way for the player to shape the narrative and explore different endings. In a lot of ways, these video games are far more engaging than simply reading a book. One article I read explored how What Remains of Edith Finch uses what the author calls empathy puzzles to build empathy in the player. The game uses short sequences and clever game design to reflect deep themes of generational trauma through short vignettes discovered by the main character, Edith Finch. The game builds evocative spaces, and the writer functions as narrative architects rather than storytellers. In this way, the story isn't read to you, but is experienced by you. This allows the game developers to build in the empathy puzzles I mentioned earlier. As you progress through the story and put together the narrative and mechanical puzzle, you develop empathy in the moment because you experience it as the character does, seeing, hearing, and feeling everything. In fact, a case study was done in Australia where English teachers used the game I just mentioned in grade 10 English classrooms. It found that students were far more excited and engaged with the content than an average novel, and that students were eager to reflect and discuss the core themes of the narrative.
Wow, that's so cool. I wish my high school English class did that.
Yeah, me too. This kind of narrative thematic literature study could help a lot of students who struggle with or hate reading. It is also proven that playing text-based narrative games can significantly improve reading and writing skills too. Many video games have incredibly deep themes, and some are written like masterpieces of fiction. Allow me to recommend 2 narrative-focused story games that would be great for English classes. First, of course, is the game we just talked about earlier, What Remains of Edith Finch. This game is a masterpiece of storytelling. Now, Jasmine is going to read the official game description for you, so you can kind of get the gist of what it's all about.
The story follows the 17-year-old Edith Finch, the last surviving member of her family, as she returns to her ancestral home for the first time in 7 years. Re-exploring the house, she uncovers her family's mysterious past and learns about the series of deaths that eventually caused the complete collapse of her family structure. The game is presented as an interconnected anthology. The story utilizes unique mediums from multiple perspectives and is told through a series of vignettes. However, the player is made to doubt the authenticity of each story being told. The magical realist story touches on themes of free will, fate, memory, and death.
Thank you, Jasmine. So, the official rating of this game is teen, 13+, but I will warn you that there is an implied suicide near the end of the game in one of the vignettes, if that is a concern for you. Additionally, I would personally recommend this game as a grade 10 English class level or above, as some of the themes and content can be very complex. The game itself only takes about 2.5 hours to play, and as somebody who loves this game, I can tell you that the 2 hours is worth it. Play it once and you'll definitely see what I'm talking about. The next game I'm going to recommend is called The Stanley Parable. This game is very different from the last game we talked about. What Remains of Edith Finch is undoubtedly a serious and dramatic game, whereas The Stanley Parable has quite a bit of humor in it. This game is an excellent example of the unreliable narrator trope, and would be an excellent way to introduce students to it. Now, Saab, will you read the official game description?
In the game, the player guides a silent protagonist named Stanley alongside narration by British actor Kevin Brighton. As the story progresses, the player is confronted with diverging pathways. The player may contradict the narrator's directions, which, if disobeyed, will be incorporated into the story. Depending on the choices made, the player will encounter different endings before the game resets to the beginning.
Thank you, Saab. Basically, the idea is that the narrator narrates what is supposed to happen in his telling of the story, and it's up to you to decide if you want to follow his storyline or not.
Actually, I played The Stanley Parable for a class. It was super interesting.
Yeah, the game has 46 different endings, so there are tons of ways to play. Additionally, the game is rated E10+, and doesn't have any particularly dark scenes. Although I'm sure a 10-year-old would enjoy the game, I don't think they'd fully understand the concept or themes though. I would not use this game in a grade 5 classroom. I would wait until at least grade 8 so the students will be better suited to understanding the concept of the game. In conclusion, narrative-focused story games not only can but should be used in English classrooms. They provide a unique way of storytelling that is incredibly engaging and valuable to learning literacy comprehension skills.
Now, let's dive into how these educational video games are made. The goal of these games are for players to enjoy themselves, but also to complete learning objectives in the process. A good educational game doesn't just teach. It keeps players engaged, so they want to keep learning. So, how do they do that?
Well, we can look at Duolingo's origins as an example. It started off as an education project by some university professors who wanted to make English learning more accessible. To make a project a reality, a lot of funding was required. Duolingo was said to have received funding amounting to a couple $1 million. A lot of programming work is also needed for these games to function, and that can take around a year or longer.
Adding to Duolingo's intent for free accessible learning, a lot of educational video games like ones on cool math games and sites like Duolingo and Quizlet are all found online with just a quick search. Meanwhile, others are sold on Steam, the App Store or Xbox or even physical stores. Some of the non-traditional educational video games often have their own websites too. Some schools often buy site licenses for classroom use, like Minecraft Education's edition.
So from what I understood, the key things to be aware of when creating an educational video game is that you need to pinpoint the main learning goal of the game, your intended audience, and to decide how you want your players to learn.
Exactly. A game designed for elementary school students will look very different from the one meant for high schoolers or adults. The mechanics have to match the learners. A game teaching basic math might be fast-paced and reward quick thinking, while a game for learning a new language might focus on repetition and slower steps in learning.
I think what's really impressive is that it doesn't just stop at school. A lot of these educational video games are also helpful for adults. Some games even focus on economics and business management.
An example I like to bring up is a study by Zaki and Al Muhim, which found that teachers using design thinking and makerspaces created better quality educational games with stronger visuals and engagement. The process of making these games was structured around forming a strong visual identity through environment and graphic design. Furthermore, the article defined 5 important stages in the designing model of educational video games. These are the 5 stages. Emphasize, where user needs are researched and understood. Define, where the problem is identified and refined. Ideate, where creative solutions are brainstormed. Prototype, where initial versions are created and tested. And finally, test, where user feedback is gathered to improve the final product. Each stage helps ensure that the game is providing a fun and effective learning experience. And with how technology is becoming more advanced with AI and VR, there are more tools to help create immersive educational games.
That is really fascinating to learn about. It really does seem like we can expect educational video games to really branch out in how they deliver learning in the future. I am especially excited to see how VR, virtual reality, games interact with education.
It's especially cool to know the process of how these games are designed. It feels like the teachers themselves are basically learning as well in this process. When they're working together for a project like this, they can also make sure that the game is something that they can integrate into the classroom as well.
Indeed. That's why I think people should be aware of how much work goes into these games. There's an earnest effort to give students a new way to access learning. Emily, where can we find these video games?
Well, games like Duolingo and Kahoot are found online through your search browser or through the App Store. Sandbox games and narrative design games often have their own launcher, which you can find on the web or are available for purchase through platforms such as Steam.
Wow, there is so much to learn about educational video games.
Yeah, and we've just scratched the surface.
So, we just learned about the common misconceptions of video games, how to use traditional, non-traditional educational, and narrative video games in schools, and an overview of the video game making process.
So what do you guys think? Are video games an effective teaching method?
Yes.
Yes. Should video games be used in schools?
Yes.
And are video games beneficial for both the student and the teacher?
Yes.
Here's a list of games we suggested.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please give us an A.
Bye.
Bye.